Pay my wages. Pay my wages.
This is a worker. This is from the production contract team. This is also a worker. This is the boss. This is also a big boss. Look at what is happening in China.
A country that once declared it would surpass the US by 2030 is now facing a reality no one dares to speak of. It is breaking down from within. More than 20 million fresh graduates are unemployed. Street vendors in Shenzhen sit all day without a single customer. A generation that once dreamed of the Chinese dream now only hopes for a bowl of rice and a place to sleep. Beneath the still-standing facade is a society fracturing layer by layer. The question is not, is China in a recession? The real question is, what caused such a powerful system to quietly collapse? In Guangzhou, a 4 yuan lunch, roughly 50 cents, consisting of noodles, eggs, and pickled vegetables, has become the go-to option. Not out of thrift, but because that's all people can afford. State media still pushes a narrative of consumption upgrades, yet in reality, millions are scaling back to survival mode spending. The gap between official headlines and daily struggle has never felt wider. Cities that were once bustling with construction now stand frozen. Cranes sit idle, scaffolding rusts, and construction workers have long gone home without being paid. 60 million vacant apartments sit in eerie silence. Entire districts in newly built urban zones have turned into ghost cities, with weeds overtaking sidewalks and shopping malls left unopened. The banking crisis is becoming more visible too. Restrictions on withdrawals are quietly increasing. People are lining up outside local branches, only to be told they can't access their own savings. Some try to film what's happening, only to be stopped or even arrested. Meanwhile, China's once glamorous airline industry is in freefall. Job listings for cabin crew have vanished. Former flight attendants and pilots are now selling fruit by the roadside or live streaming online in hopes of donations. What used to be a symbol of middle-class status is now a memory, buried under a wave of unemployment. The roots of the collapse lie in a model that was never sustainable. For years, the real estate sector served as China's engine of growth, built on speculation and leverage. Developers like Evergrande promised apartments they couldn't finish, using down payments to buy more land instead of delivering homes. It was a Ponzi scheme scaled up to the size of a continent. Local governments weren't just passive participants. They were addicted to land sales. In some provinces, over half of their annual budget came from selling land to developers. When prices rose, they sold more land. When sales slowed, they offered subsidies and pressure campaigns to convince people to buy homes. It worked until it didn't. As sales dried up, financing options vanished. Developers defaulted, leaving millions with mortgages, but no homes. Banks were left holding non-performing loans they tried to hide. Trust began to erode, and with it, the ability of the government to stabilize the market. In 2024 alone, more than 290 banks either collapsed or were forcibly merged. Rural banks were hit hardest, some frozen completely. People couldn't access funds, ATMs went dry, silent runs on banks spread across provinces. In response, Beijing issued secret liquidity bailouts, but it was already too late for many. This wasn't just a financial crisis. It was a betrayal of the promise that real estate would always rise, that your deposit would always be safe, and that the party would always be in control. The consequences aren't confined to balance sheets. They ripple through kitchens and classrooms. Rice sales have dropped 30%, not because people are eating healthier, but because they can't afford staples. Even instant noodles are now rationed in low-income households. Children bring bread crusts to school for lunch. Grocery stores slash prices and still see empty aisles. This decline in consumption is not due to lack of desire, but a collapse in purchasing power. With job security evaporating, every yuan is watched closely. Clothing sales are down, electronics are untouched, restaurants that used to be full now struggle to stay open on weekends. And while prices fall, confidence drops even faster. the yuan is weakening. People want to hedge with foreign currency, but they can't. New regulations make it harder to convert savings. Banks require excessive paperwork, long delays, or flat-out denials. And rumors of account freezes have sparked fear across middle-class households. Unemployment is feeding a social crisis. More than 1 in 5 young people are out of work. Libraries and 24-hour cafes are now unofficial shelters for the idle and anxious. On any given weekday, thousands sit scrolling endlessly on their phones, not out of laziness, but out of despair. These aren't isolated stories. They are now the norm. The breakdown is no longer theoretical. It's tactile. It's visible in empty plates, abandoned stores, and silent factories. And it's setting the stage for something deeper, a reckoning between economic reality and a government still clinging to illusion. For decades, the Chinese Communist Party upheld an unspoken deal with its citizens. Trade your silence for stability, your political passivity for economic progress. As long as people had jobs, homes, and hope, they accepted censorship, surveillance, and a lack of political freedom. That bargain no longer holds. Young people, once motivated by the prospect of climbing the social ladder, are choosing to lie flat, rejecting the rat race, refusing to marry, have children, or even seek full-time employment. In doing so, they quietly rebel against a system that promised everything, but now delivers nothing. The elderly, who once relied on pensions and family support, now face bleak futures. With pension funds strained and adult children out of work, millions of retirees are turning to low-wage street vending or returning to menial labor. The social contract didn't just break, it vanished overnight. Mass disillusionment has found a voice online. From personal manifestos to viral protest footage, social media is now the only place where truth leaks out. But even there, censorship tightens daily. Videos disappear, accounts are deleted, police visit homes based on anonymous posts. Underneath it all is a slow burning rage. A society promised prosperity has been handed precarity. What began as economic mismanagement is now unraveling into social disintegration. People aren't just struggling to survive, they're questioning what it means to be Chinese in a system that no longer delivers. China is not just another large economy, it's the beating heart of global manufacturing, a dominant buyer of raw materials and a key player in trade, tech, and finance. What happens in Beijing doesn't stay in Beijing. It reverberates through boardrooms in Berlin, supply chains in Detroit, and stock markets in Tokyo. Already, the world is seeing shockwaves. US importers are cutting ties. European regulators are preparing anti-dumping investigations. Emerging markets that once depended on Chinese infrastructure funding through the Belt and Road Initiative are being left in limbo as promised money dries up. China's economic troubles are accelerating a global shift in production. Companies that once depended on Chinese labor are relocating to Vietnam, India, Mexico, and Indonesia. And this decoupling isn't just economic, it's geopolitical. Trust in China as a stable partner is eroding. As China floods foreign markets with surplus inventory at dirt cheap prices, Western manufacturers are undercut. Steel, solar panels, electric vehicles, all exported below cost to survive. What looks like opportunity for consumers is actually desperation from producers. A collapse of confidence in China could spark not only trade fragmentation, but financial contagion. If foreign investors panic or Beijing devalues the yuan in response, capital flight could destabilize entire regions. For a global economy already teetering post-COVID and amid war, a Chinese implosion would be catastrophic. This is not just a Chinese story, it's a global inflection point, and it's already begun. While the crisis unfolds publicly, Beijing's response remains eerily quiet, and that's what makes it frightening. The government refuses to acknowledge the crisis, but quietly rolls out shadow credit packages to rescue rural banks. Some cities experimented with direct cash handouts. only to cancel them silently. Rumors abound of a digital asset plan, where the government replaces cash with centrally controlled digital currency. They won't seize your wealth by force, but by regulations and digital locks. Meanwhile, state media continues to chant slogans like, "Believe in the recovery." But when you have to repeat that every day, perhaps even you no longer believe it. What's happening in China isn't just another economic cycle. It's a systemic crisis, a fracture in trust, in the model itself, and in the very way this nation was built to grow. The real estate market has collapsed. Banks are wobbling. Public trust has vanished. The government is losing its grip. And most importantly, an entire generation has lost hope. The big question, can China save itself? Or are we witnessing, for the first time, a superpower facing a silent but growing internal reckoning?